Martin Preston, a marine chemist at the University of Liverpool. He joins us now live from Edinburgh. Martin, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
I mean, was Tony Hayward right in his comments that, you know, the Gulf is a very big ocean and the amount of oil is tiny?
Well, the amount of oil is, I suppose if we could put it in everyday terms, the total volume is about the same as a box the size of a football pitch in size, or a soccer pitch, I suppose I should say, and compared to the volume of the Gulf of Mexico, that is pretty small. It's obviously still an awful lot of oil. It's a very, very big spill, but as we've heard previously, an awful lot of it has now disappeared and dispersed and evaporated and been degraded. Is
that something that you expected to happen? I mean, 3/4 of the oil is gone. I mean, could you and did you predict that?
Yes, I think we could say that if you were going to have an oil spill of this size, the Gulf of Mexico is perhaps not the worst place to have it, if I can put it in those terms. The warm water, the type of the oil, means that it will evaporate very quickly. There are lots of natural bacteria there that will degrade it very fast. It would have been very much worse if the spill had been in a cold water environment, as we saw with the EXXON Valdez, and there the effects have persisted much longer. In warm climates, the effects tend not to last anything like such a long time. I mean, that's the environmental effects, of course, not the economic and social effects, which are major.
I mean, you mentioned the bacterial species. They've evolved, of course, to deal with the oil, but maybe they're using up more oxygen in the water, which means there'll be less oxygen to support sea life. Can you explain that for us?
Well, that's certainly true. The process by which the bacteria degrade the oil uses oxygen, and it also uses nutrient chemicals like nitrogen and phosphorus as well during that process. So for it to happen, there need to be supplies of that, and as the process occurs, then the quantities decrease. Now, there have been some reports of low oxygen levels in the Gulf of Mexico over the years, and I think it remains to be seen whether the increase in the amount of oxygen that's being used by the oil is going to have a significant effect on the species that live there, the fish, the birds, the crabs and shrimps and so on.
Martin, briefly, I know you've got on record to say that maybe the reaction to the spill was more driven by politics than the environment itself. Because it was maybe more driven by politics, did they deal with things incorrectly? I know there was some kinds of environmental damage in salt marshes, which maybe you shouldn't go jumping around in.
Well, I think you have to be very careful that you don't just do things because you have to be seen to be doing something. There are certainly some environments, salt marshes are one example, mangroves and perhaps corals as well, where human intervention can make the damage still worse. Obviously the oil causes damage, but if you go in there and drive the oil further into the mud, you're likely to do much more damage in the long term.
Martin, thank you for joining us today. Martin Preston there, marine chemist.